It's day 124 of our Bible reading plan, and we're reading Numbers chapter 35, Jonah chapter 1, Jonah chapter 2, Matthew chapter 12, verse 15 to verse 32, Romans chapter 9, verse 19 to verse 29, and Psalms 119, verse 121 to 144. We're reading from the Berean Standard Bible. Numbers 35. Again, the Lord spoke to Moses on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. Command the Israelites to give from the inheritance they will possess cities for the Levites to live in and pasture lands around the cities. The cities will be for them to live in, and the pasture lands will be for their herds, their flocks, and all their other livestock. The pasture lands around the cities you are to give the Levites will extend 1,000 cubits from the wall on every side. You are also to measure 2,000 cubits outside the city on the east, 2,000 on the south, 2,000 on the west, and 2,000 on the north, with the city in the center. These areas will serve as larger pasture lands for the cities. 6 of the cities you give the Levites are to be appointed as cities of refuge to which a manslayer may flee. In addition to these, give the Levites 42 other cities. The total number of cities you give the Levites will be 48, with their corresponding pasture lands. The cities that you apportion from the territory of the Israelites should be given to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance of each tribe, more from a larger tribe and less from a smaller one. Then the Lord said to Moses, Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, designate cities to serve as your cities of refuge, so that a person who kills someone unintentionally may flee there. You are to have these cities as a refuge from the avenger, so that the manslayer will not die until he stands trial before the assembly. The cities you select will be your 6 cities of refuge. Select 3 cities across the Jordan and 3 in the land of Canaan as cities of refuge. These 6 cities will serve as a refuge for the Israelites and for the foreigner or stranger among them, so that anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee there. If, however, anyone strikes a person with an iron object and kills him, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. Or if anyone has in his hand a stone of deadly size, and he strikes and kills another, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. If anyone has in his hand a deadly object of wood, and he strikes and kills another, he is a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. The avenger of blood is to put the murderer to death. When he finds him, he is to kill him. Likewise, if anyone maliciously pushes another or intentionally throws an object at him and kills him, or if in hostility he strikes him with his hand and he dies, the one who struck him must surely be put to death. He is a murderer. When the avenger of blood finds the murderer, he is to kill him. But if anyone pushes a person suddenly, without hostility, or throws an object at him unintentionally, or without looking drops a heavy stone that kills him, but he was not an enemy and did not intend to harm him, then the congregation must judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these ordinances. The assembly is to protect the manslayer from the hand of the avenger of blood. Then the assembly will return him to the city of refuge to which he fled, and he must live there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the holy oil. But if the manslayer ever goes outside the limits of the city of refuge to which he fled, and the avenger of blood finds him outside of the city of refuge and kills him, then the avenger will not be guilty of bloodshed, because the manslayer must remain in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. Only after the death of the high priest may he return to the land he owns. This will be a statutory ordinance for you for the generations to come, wherever you live. If anyone kills a person The murderer is to be put to death on the testimony of the witnesses, but no one is to be put to death based on the testimony of a lone witness. You are not to accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who deserves to die. He must surely be put to death. Nor should you accept a ransom for the person who flees to a city of refuge and allow him to return and live on his own land before the death of the high priest. Do not pollute the land where you live, for bloodshed pollutes the land, and no atonement can be made for the land on which the blood is shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it. Do not defile the land where you live and where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites. Jonah chapter 1. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. Jonah, however, got up to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship bound for Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went aboard to sail for Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. Then the Lord hauled a great wind upon the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship was in danger of breaking apart. The sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God, and they threw the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down to the lowest part of the vessel, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain approached him and said, How can you sleep? Get up and call upon your God. Perhaps this God will consider us, so that we may not perish. Come, said the sailors to one another, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity that is upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Tell us now, they demanded, who is to blame for this calamity that is upon us? What is your occupation, and where have you come from? What is your country, and who are your people? I am a Hebrew, replied Jonah. I worship the Lord, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were even more afraid and said to him, What have you done? The men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Now the sea was growing worse and worse. So they said to Jonah, What must we do to you to calm this sea for us? Pick me up, he answered, and cast me into the sea, so it may quiet down for you. For I know that I am to blame for this violent storm that has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea was raging against them more and more. So they cried out to the Lord, Please, O Lord, do not let us perish on account of this man's life. Do not charge us with innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as you pleased. At this, they picked up Jonah and cast him into the sea, and the raging sea grew calm. Then the men feared the Lord greatly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. Now the Lord had appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. Jonah chapter 2. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God, saying, In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol I called for help, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the current swirled about me. All your breakers and waves swept over me. At this I said, I have been banished from your sight. Yet I will look once more toward your holy temple. The waters engulfed me to take my life. The watery depths closed around me. The seaweed wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I descended. The earth beneath me barred me in forever. But you raised my life from the pit, O Lord my God. As my life was fading away, I remembered the Lord. My prayer went up to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols forsake his loving devotion, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. I will fulfill what I have vowed. Salvation is from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. Now we read Matthew chapter 12, verse 15 to verse 32. Aware of this, Jesus withdrew from that place. Large crowds followed him, and he healed them all, warning them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul delights. I will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not extinguish, till he leads justice to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. Then a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute was brought to Jesus, and he healed the man so that he could speak and see. The crowds were astounded and asked, "Could this be the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "Only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, does this man drive out demons." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be laid waste, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then can his kingdom stand? And if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your sons drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. Or again, how can anyone enter a strong man's house and steal his possessions unless he first ties up the strong man? Then he can plunder his house. He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters. Therefore I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven men, but the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. Whoever speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but whoever speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the one to come. Our next reading is Romans chapter 9, verse 19 to verse 29. One of you will say to me, "Then why does God still find fault? For who can resist his will?" But who are you, O man, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to him who formed it, "Why did you make me like this?" Does not the potter have the right to make from the same lump of clay one vessel for special occasions and another for common use? What if God, intending to show his wrath and make his power known, bore with great patience the vessels of his wrath prepared for destruction? What if he did this to make the riches of his glory known to the vessels of his mercy, whom he prepared in advance for glory, including hers, whom he has called not only from the Jews, but also from the Gentiles, as he says in Hosea, "I will call them my people who are not my people, and I will call her my beloved who is not my beloved." And it will happen that in the very place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," they will be called sons of the living God. Isaiah cries out concerning Israel, "Though the number of the Israelites is like the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved. For the Lord will carry out his sentence on the earth thoroughly and decisively." It is just as Isaiah foretold, unless the Lord of hosts had left us descendants, we would have become like Sodom, we would have resembled Gomorrah. Now we're going to read the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 121 to verse 144. "I have done what is just and right. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Ensure your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fail looking for your salvation and for your righteous promise. Deal with your servant according to your loving devotion and teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding that I may know your testimonies. It is time for the Lord to act, for they have broken your law. Therefore, I love your commandments more than gold, even the purest gold. Therefore, I admire all your precepts and hate every false way. Wonderful are your testimonies, therefore I obey them. The unfolding of your words gives light, it informs the simple. I open my mouth and pant, longing for your commandments. Turn to me and show me mercy, as you do to those who love your name. Order my steps in your word. Let no sin rule over me. Redeem me from the oppression of man, that I may keep your precepts. Make your face shine upon your servant and teach me your statutes. My eyes shed streams of tears because your law is not obeyed. Righteous are you, O Lord, and upright are your judgments. The testimonies you have laid down are righteous and altogether faithful. My zeal has consumed me because my foes forget your words. Your promise is completely pure, therefore your servant loves it. I am lowly and despised, but I do not forget your precepts. Your righteousness is everlasting, and your law is true. Trouble and distress have found me, but your commandments are my delight. Your testimonies are righteous forever. Give me understanding that I may live. May the Lord bless the reading and hearing of His word.